Hi grade 9s, it's Miss Lungaraj here, and we're going to do a second video today on lesson 3 from assignment 4. So we started that yesterday and today we will finish it. So before we begin, let's make sure that everyone has a piece of paper, a pencil, and a calculator. It's going to make learning so much easier. So here is the question that I left you for homework yesterday. We had to make a table of values for this equation. The equation was C is equal to 18n plus 200. And when you look at that, that means the rate of change, the jumping number is 18 because it is the number that's next to the letter or the variable. And the 200 is where it started. And you could choose whatever you wanted the x side or the left side, the ends to jump by. And I decided to make mine jump by 50. And so here would be the correct table of values if you jump by 50. So 18 times 0 plus 200 gives you 200. 18 times 50 plus 200 gives you 1100, and so on and so on. And so you can check that with your graph from yesterday. So maybe right now you can just press pause quickly on the video and check your homework from yesterday to make sure that you got the same table of values, or even if yours is a little different, that yours is correct when you compare it to mine. So I graphed menu 1, menu 2, and menu 3 using Desmos. I put the tables of values like we did yesterday into Desmos, and I graphed them all on the same graph. The green one would be menu 1, the blue one, menu 2, and then the red one is menu 3. And so typically when we have a graph, there are lines that go through the dots, like this, okay? And that's normally right. The only reason in this example that we put dots instead of lines through, and this is a little bit complicated, so if you don't fully get it, that's okay, is because this graph is not really continuous. You can have one person or two person or 3 people or 4 people attending the party. You can't have 1.5 people or 1.8 people or 3.7 people coming to the party. You can only have whole numbers, and that's why we leave the graph looking like this, where we just make dots. But sometimes drawing the line through the graph just makes us able to check to make sure it's reasonable and to learn a few things about the graph. Okay, so here is question 4 from the assignment booklet, and this is the first thing we're really going to do together today. And this is what the table looks like. And when I read this table, I know that table can be a little bit confusing. So what I did was I rewrote the table with language that we would understand. So that first column, when it talked about the increments of n, it just means how much does the first column jump. And then the second column where it says first differences, that just means how much does the second column jump. And then the last little bit, the last column, what it wants you to do is it wants you to take the jumps in the y and divide by the jumps in the x. And really, that's just us doing subtract, divide. It's the same thing we've done. They've just used it some different language. So we're going to do that right now together. So just to remind you, this is the table of values for menu number 1. There's the work we did, and there's the answers. So I've drawn the table on my chart paper, and we can see that the increment in n, that means the way the n's are jumping or the x's are jumping, is 25. And the first difference, or the way the y's are jumping, or the c, is 250. So we can fill in the first 2 columns of our table now. So I filled in the table. The first column jumps by 25. The second column jumps by 250. And then the last thing it wants you to do is it wants you to calculate the rate of change by dividing those 2. That means really we've done subtract, divide. So we need to do that to get the answer. Subtract, divide. I know you guys really missed that dance, so I felt like I should add it to the video. And when we do subtract, divide, we get 10, and that would be the rate of change for menu number 1. because it's going up $10 every one person. Let's do the same thing for menu number 2 now. So menu 2 had the equation C is equal to 14n plus 200, and that means it was jumping 14 every time and it started at 200, and that means we'd have to go 14 times the number of people plus 200, and so these are the calculations we'd need to do. And when you do those calculations, the table of values you will get will look like this. And this shows you that the increment for n, or how the x's jump, is 50, and then the first differences, or how the y's or c's jump, is 700. So we now need to do 700 divided by 50 to find the rate of change. And if we do that, we will get the rate of change is 14. Now your homework is going to be that you need to do the same thing for menu number 3, and you're going to fill in the bottom of that chart for menu number 3. Now, this whole assignment is about us comparing the graph, the equation, and the table of values to make sure they all match. So what I want you to look at is I want you to look at the graph and the equation, and I want you to notice that each of those graphs start at 200. And the reason those graphs start at 200 is because in the equation we see the plus 200. I also want you to notice that all the lines, the blue, the green, the red, they have different steepnesses because depending on how much it jumps per person. If it only jumps $10 per person, the line won't be so steep. If it jumps $14 per person, the line will be a little steeper. And then if it jumps $18 per person, it's going to jump even steeper. So in this table of values, it wants you to tell me what is the same and what is different about the 3 lines. Well, what's the same is that they all have the same initial value. They all start at 200, and that's why they all start at the same place on the graph. The thing that's different is they start at 200, but then they go up differently. The red one goes the steepest, the green one goes the least steep, and that's because the rate of change for all 3 are different. The first one's 10, the second one's 14, and the third one's 18. So that's why the graphs all start at 200 because the initial value is the same, but then they go at different steepness levels because they each have a different rate of change. So in the table of values, you would write down this under same initial value. They all have an initial value of 200. What's different is they all have a different rate of change. One has a rate of change of 10, one has a rate of change of 14, and one has a rate of change of 18. Okay, so now we see these questions. Number 6. And these questions aren't difficult at all. You just have to think a little bit about what the 2 numbers in the bracket stand for. So the first number stands for the N, and the second number stands for the C. How do I know that? Well, in the table of values, the N comes first, and then the C comes second. So that means that that first number tells you the N, the number of people. That means for A, it means that if 120 people come, the cost will be $1,780. And then for B, the first number is the N, the second number is the C. It means that if 80 people come and we use menu 3, the cost will be $1,540. Okay, so now we're on to question 7, and it says 70 people come to the party. 70. 70. And it wants to know how much will it cost for menu 1, menu 2, and menu 3. So we need to use the equations for menu 1, menu 2, and menu 3 to find the answer. So let's look at menu number 1. Remember the equation for menu number 1 was 10n plus 200. So if my n, my number of people, if that number of people is 70, we need to do 10 times 70 plus 200, and that will give us 900. So for menu number 1, it would cost $900. For menu number 2, the equation is C is equal to 14n plus 200. So we would need to do 14 times 70 plus 200, and that would give us 1,180. Okay, so here is a picture of the table of values for menu 3. Remember, we've looked at that before. What I want you to do is I want you to figure out how much would it cost for 70 people to eat at the party if we use menu number 3. That's your homework as well. Okay, so we're on to question number 8. Question number 8 says, Hakeem and Aya are planning a celebration. They have $3,000 to spend on dinner. They would like to have menu 3. What is the greatest number of guests they can have? You're going to have to use the equation for menu 3. But before you can do that, you need to figure out, is the 3,000, is that the cost? Is that the C? Or is that the number of people? So let's just look at the table of values for menu number 3 and let's decide, would the $3,000, would that go on the left-hand side? Would it go in the first column or would it go in the second column? Well, I think we could all see that $3,000 would go in the second column and the letter above that is a C. So that means that 3,000 is going to be a C. So we need to write down the equation. C is equal to 18N plus 200. And instead of writing C, we're going to write down 3,000 because 3,000 is our cost. So 3,000 is equal to 18N plus 200. And now we're going to do algebra. We're going to take away the 200 from both sides. So I get 2,800 is equal to 18N. And then I need to move the 18 over. So I need to divide by 18. So I have 2,800 divided by 18 gives me 1,500. Sorry, I'm lying, 155.5. And that means that the most number of people they can invite to their party, if they have $3,000, using menu 3 would be 155 people. Okay, lastly, number 9. I'm going to leave this question for homework for you, but I want to explain before I leave you on your own to do it. So it says Gloucester High School has 50 teachers. The number of people is 50. We want to find the cost for menu 2 if we know that the number of people is 50. So we know that the N is 50 and we want to find the C. So you'd need to use the equation for menu number 2 and you'd need to put the N 50 in and then calculate the C. And then it says, well, how much would it cost if Gloucester High School used menu number 3 instead? So we know the number of people, the N is 50. We'd want to put that into the equation for menu number 3. We want to calculate the cost. And then the last question says, how much more expensive is menu number 3 in total than menu number 2? So then we just subtract. So your homework for tonight. First of all, remember we need to finish that table where you need to find the rate of change for menu number 3. You also need to find the cost for 70 people with menu number 3, just like we did for menu 1 and menu 2 in the video. And then you need to finish this question number 9 and make sure you get that done as well. If you have questions, I will be on Google Meet. I am here to help you. I don't want you to struggle. I want to help you. So please come and join me on Google Meet in the afternoon from 1:30 to 3. And after you've watched this video, just leave me a little comment so I know that you've watched it. I hope you have a beautiful day. It's almost the weekend. You won't hear from me again until Monday. And next week, I'll make 4 more videos and then we're done with assignment number 4.